Hello, my name is Dr. Ingrid Mitchell, and this is the asynchronous session for analyzing scholar work. The live session was delivered on October the 7th, 2020. I hope that everyone has had a restful fall break, and I look forward to seeing you upon return on October the 19th to continue this work of analyzing scholar work. When you are ready, please press proceed. In this asynchronous session, you'll determine why we're doing this specific work so that you'll have buy-in and want to participate weekly in the task of analyzing scholar work. You will also asynchronously review the WDM, which is our weekly data meeting rubric. You'll take 40 minutes and analyze the process, go through an asynchronous simulation where you're categorized student work, and then asynchronously you'll reflect on the next steps in how to prepare and proceed for the live session of analyzing scholar work. You'll have two objectives during this asynchronous session, and they will be to complete a know and show chart based on a specific ELA standard that will be given. And then you will also analyze the 3 scholar works given to identify some key gaps in their work. And it's going to be based upon the ELA standard selected. Now, why do we do this work? Why do we analyze scholar work? And with these products presented here, Russian Revolution, word wall test, narrative writing, be products that will be standard worthy? Well, businessmen and philanthropists Clement Stone claim that definitiveness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement, and standards provide that definition of purpose for each grade level. Standards should measure excellence, not just a benchmark of skills. Therefore, a committee of teachers, administrators, and higher education faculty develop a set of learning outcomes that embraces an overall expectation of this 21st century in literacy skills necessary to succeed, not only in their current grade, but post-secondary and in the workforce. Thus, critical and divergent thinking, problem solving, active listening, and recognition of patterns and anomalies, and evaluation and questioning of source materials are essential skills for this session. With that in mind, would these products be standard worthy? And what will we have to do to determine that? The Russian Revolution is the topic, and the teacher selected the 4-square writing strategy for students to submit their work. Well, the first step is for us to look at the standard in which the Russian Revolution is embedded. Break it down. What is the noun and the verb within that standard and the expectations embedded for that grade level in student performance indicators would help us determine if this is standard worthy. Next sample. We have a word wall test where the student's task seemed to be to write each of the word walls twice. Would this be standard worthy? Again, you would have to take a look at a standard that matched words and determine if this task was standard worthy. If not, what adjustments would be made to ensure that everything a student was to do and see and task be yielded to standard worthy. Lastly, we have a narrative writing where the student has images and their writing. Would this be standard worthy? Again, we would have to pull the standard, look at the cornerstone, and evaluate based on the student performance indicator if it was standard worthy. So why do we do this type of work? In analyzing student work, is to ensure that every time students participate in a learning session, that students are learning and we are governing against tasks that are quality and based on standard. So now take a few moments and pull out your WDM rubric, your weekly data meeting rubric. As you pull your weekly data meeting rubric out, you'll have 7 minutes to review it and ask yourself these particular questions based on the information given. You'll summarize the sections in this asynchronous session. You're going to answer the question since this is an asynchronous question. And then you still will be able to provide insight on what you've read. Again, here are your questions for the rubric. According to the WDM rubric, how must you prepare for the data meetings, the live sessions? Looking at the weekly data meeting rubric, in the category of See It, what stands out for you? And in the Name It section, what should you do with the student work against the standard? And in the last two sections of the Do It and the Reteach in your weekly data meeting rubric, identify some of those imperative pieces in the Do It section and Reteach. These are the 4 questions and look-fors as you look at your weekly data meeting rubric. Read that now. And at the end of 7 minutes, press forward. Thank you. And you should be complete looking at your weekly data meeting rubric. And to the live session, please bring the answers to these questions. According to the WDM rubric, your weekly data meeting rubric, how must you prepare for the live meetings? And in the See It section of the WDM, what stood out for you? In the Name It section, what should you do with the student work against the standard? And in the end, what was your response to those imperative pieces that you found in the Do It and the Reteach section of the WDM rubric? The process of the student work analysis or our weekly data meetings will be one that each week you'll collect student data or their products, tasks that were given by you that yielded products. Then two, we'll analyze some strengths and some obstacles with those student work samples against the rubric. We're going to set some SMART goals of improvement or reteaching. We're going to determine some instructional strategies or select a prescription for those gaps that we see in student work. And then determine results indicators, but will be all geared towards focusing in on those standards that are taught through our curricula. Now, here's the process of how we will look at student work. Don't fear that they are looking at a math sample. It is the process of the way they explain the task, the way they silently observe the work. They're noticing and wonders of student work and how they analyze and judge the student work against the samples and discussions around the work and their next steps. So again, as you watch this short video on the process of analyzing scholar work, I want us to reflect on how does the process look and how will it affect your planning and your lesson delivery. You want to also hone in on the video and look for how they explain the task. They silently observe, they notice and wonder, analyze and judge, and discuss student work. And in the end, what were the results of the school overall based on the work that they did in looking at scholar work? What results did the school earn in their processes of looking at scholar work?
The student organized it from greatest to least before he graphed it.
That is interesting.
This one's counting by 6s, 12s, 5s.
Because our teachers look at student work, they really see what students are thinking and how they're expressing their understanding from the classroom, and they're better able to guide and facilitate a deeper level of student learning.
So it's two ways of them being able to think about creating this graph.
At Two Rivers, we really care about our whole community as learners.
So what do we do so far?
That includes not just our students, but also our staff.
The reason that we look at student work is to help teachers become better teachers. Student work is the expression of what kids are learning. And so if you're thinking about how am I doing as a teacher, there's your evidence.
So when you guys get with your partner, you're going to work to create a what type of graph? Bar graph. We just started doing bar graphs with them last week, so it's relatively new. Make sure your name is on it, please. The process of looking at the work will really help me as I'm planning the rest of this sequence of lessons.
One of the most powerful things that we do is a looking at student work protocol.
Taryn today brought a set of student work. The group of teachers and I took a look at that work to give her some insights into what do her kids really understand around this technical skill of creating a graph.
So the task that they have was Miss Cynthia is ordering new shirts for next year. The protocol starts where I give a very short introduction to what the work is. How can Miss Cynthia create a graph to represent the data about the different colored shirts she ordered? And what you'll see is the chart with the different colored shirts, and there's different numbers, so it was differentiated. The team looks at the work, and they look at it silently, just thinking about how they would respond to the task, and then looking at how students did. After that, there is about 5 minutes where the presenter is silent and you're just talking about things you notice and things you wonder about the task.
I noticed that there's 3 different sets of numbers.
I noticed that in one of the sets, it's only 2-digit numbers. I wonder which students got which sets of numbers.
After about 5 minutes, we shift the protocol to comments where there is analysis, and we can start to put our own judgments into what we are seeing with the data. I feel like what the kids needed to grapple with in this problem was really around scale.
Look at how different they look based on what the scale that they chose was.
I feel like there's this profound vulnerability in being silent while your team looks at the work that you're doing. It removes you from the conversation so that you can really focus on what people are saying because you're listening.
Following that, there's a discussion. I think what was happy for me to hear was you guys noticed what we wanted them to grapple with was the scale on this one. That's the part where we really talk about, okay, well, what are the next steps that students need? Thinking about the story, if we look at Matthew's and then someone else, it all of a sudden looks like way more shirts were ordered.
It does.
If you're designing a graph to tell a story of something, you know, scale matters, right?
I feel like I get concrete feedback and concrete steps to take. I like the ideas that you guys said. What is the story like? What do we want people to think about it? So I really like the idea of graphing telling a story. What else could that graph be telling me? So I think that's going to be our focus. Has anyone ever thought about stories in math before? I don't know if you're going to believe me, but the bar graphs you create tell a story.
Getting feedback is daunting at first, but after people experience it, they relish it.
This is how much people like Milo. This is how much people like me.
The same way students get ideas from each other, I get a lot of ideas from my colleagues. I absolutely love it, and I need it.
One thing that is important of the results that happen for this particular school is that in their analyzing student work, they were able to outperform all schools in their district in the area of reading as well as math. So the process of looking at student work against the standard is very important. So then for our organization, the process of looking at student work is going to be in 3 steps. We're going to see it, name it, and do it. We're going to see it, name it, and do it. And in the see it, we're going to probe those student work tasks against the standards. Then we're going to take action based on the gaps that we see in the student work. And then to do it, we're going to plan and practice and reteach and follow up based on how student performs on end of week tests, and then go back and praise them for making improvements, and the cycle begin again. So again, our effective steps are going to be see it, name it, and do it. Let's practice. Let's first probe. And what do we see? One of your questions may be, I wonder why 50% of my students received an F on this assignment or quiz. This is the probing. Well, if the cornerstone says that students will write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective techniques, well-chosen details, and well-structured event sequences, well, what does it look like at the grade level? Well, for this asynchronous session, this is what it looks like for first grade. Students will, with prompting and support, we've got that scaffolding going on for beginning, middle, and end. They will write narratives recounting an event. They will include some details and describe some actions, some thoughts, and feelings within their narrative writing. They'll use some transitional words that may be time order and signal events in order and provide some sense of closure. So we begin with the cornerstone and then we drill down to what it looks like for the particular grade level on the vertical alignment. Now here is the same student performance indicator on the top. And now you want to pause for a moment and create you a know and show chart. And in your know and show chart, you're going to reflect for a moment and determine what will students need to conceptually understand based on this standard. And if they conceptually understand the standard, then how will students be able to show what they know? The question is, what procedures or skills will students perform? This is the task. The task that will yield you a product for that particular standard. So again, with prompting and support, students will write a narrative recounting an event. And in writing about that event, students should have some details, actions, thoughts, and feelings embedded within the work that their characters are doing and feeling. You should use some transitional words that identify time, but also in the end provide a sense of closure. Again, look at this standard, write what students should know and how you want them to show. Now, based on your know show chart and looking at the standard again, you want to begin to sketch a teacher exemplar. You know what the students should know, and you know now how you want them to show their work. Reread the standard and now create a student exemplar for students to follow. So the standard is again, with prompting and support, write narratives that recount an event, including some details to describe actions, thoughts, and feelings. If the student should use time order, then so should your teacher exemplar. And they should signal order and provide some sense of closure. So here is your template, a beginning with a picture, a middle with a picture, and an end with a picture. And this is a narrative that is recounting an event. First sentence with a picture, second sentence with a picture, ending sentence with a picture, so that students can mirror your teacher exemplar. Great job. So now you have 2 samples that you should bring to the live session next week. You should have your no-show chart as well as this teacher exemplar. When ready, please press forward. Now, the process of looking at student work will be to first, in accordance to that particular standard, what does the work of your highest scholar include in their answer response? And then 2, based on the range of results, what will be the next steps for reteaching? So this is where we're going to look at those 3 scholar samples. Please take those out, those 3 scholar samples. The first sample is Isaac's. Look at Isaac's written product. Does his image reflect what he has written in the beginning, middle, and end? Now take a look at the second sample. We have Suleima's, and Suleima's has the written product. Does the image match what has been written? And does it follow a beginning, middle, and end? Suleima's also extended the standard and added a quick slideshow with many details of her beginning, middle, and end. Lastly, take a look at Victor's work and look at his writing sample. Does his writing match the image that is given? And is there a clear beginning, middle, and end according to the rubric standards that we're using? Now, in accordance to the standard, what does the work of your highest scholar include in their answer? And based on the range of results from those 3 scholars, what will be the next steps in teaching? Pause for a moment and categorize those 3 scholar samples. What does the highest scholar include? And then what would be the gap to reteach if this was your actual class set? Now our next steps will include for CKLA and Kinder, you're going to use those end of unit results in order to analyze some data and go back and provide some reteaching. But for grades 2 through 5, we'll focus in on Mastery Connect because Mastery Connect reviews what was taught within those standards over the course of a 9 weeks. Now, after we review those standard assessments, we'll go back and create some teacher exemplars along with our lesson plan so that students can mirror what teachers have shown as an exemplar or an exact sample of what their product should look like. In the end, when you come to each of the data meetings weekly, you're going to bring your data, you're going to bring your teacher exemplar, but you're also going to bring the collection of student samples and categorize them as high, medium, and low against the standard. After we've gone through the processes of debriefing and reviewing objectively with other teachers involved, we'll plan for a prescription, a reteach, and then revisit the next week around. For additional asynchronous videos, in addition to this one, please go to the following. But also, in looking at our CKLA, our EL and AF curriculums, always please use the curriculum against the ELA standards. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.